see the path to the championship. I can see it.
The Coca-Cola 600 belongs to Ryan Blaney.
Blaney's learned how to win over the last couple of months.
Blaney! Harvick! They spin behind him! It's going to be Blaney!
We're going to win this thing.
Ryan Blaney is going to win his way into the championship for...
You have to run a perfect race to get it.
Ryan Blaney is a NASCAR Cup Series champion!
What an unbelievable year. What an unbelievable playoffs for us.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 130 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media back in 2014. Each weekly episode of the show offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and special guest interviews all throughout the year. This week, Steve and I preview the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season. Steve, welcome back. It's our second episode of 2024, coming fresh off last week's episode. We talked about the Clash, and we welcomed front tire changer Ryan Flores to the show. Tell you what, we got a lot of great feedback from that interview, I thought.
Yeah, like I said, you get to listen to it. If you go to YouTube, you can actually see it. Just such a great thing to listen to about the work ethic and what it takes to be a champion,
And we teased it a little bit at the end of last week's episode, and that's the fact we have another interview with another team member from Ryan Blaney's number 12 Ford Mustang Team Penske crew, and that's going to be the brand new spotter for Ryan Blaney, and that is Tim Fedewa, a former driver himself who won multiple races in the NASCAR Busch Series, won a championship as a spotter for Kevin Harvick, who he was with for nearly the last decade. And he comes over to the 12 car as they go out and try to defend their Cup Series championship from 2023. So stay tuned to this episode. We're going to give you that 2024 season preview. Then we're going to transition right over into that interview with Tim Fedewa. Then we'll be back with you to talk a little bit about the interview and close out the show. So stay tuned. But for now, let's jump into this, Steve. We're just days away from the 2024 Daytona 500, the true kickoff of the 2024 season. But I think there's a lot of new things to talk about. And that's kind of what I want to do. It's like, what's new in 2024 for the NASCAR Cup Series? And right off the bat, I think we're going to go on the mechanical side. We're going to talk about the next-gen car itself. We're a few years into the next-gen car, but we're also on what I think this is going to be the third iteration of the Ford Mustang body, because last year we got a new nose after the first season. And then this year we got a brand new, pretty much new car from front to back. It's going to be the Dark Horse Mustang. And that thing looks mean. On the Toyota side, they also are debuting a new car, the Camry XSE. They previously were driving the Camry TRD. So both of these cars get a makeover. Definitely in the front, you can see it. There's also some things that changed in the back in the bumper area. And we mentioned going into the Daytona 500. What do you think the impacts are going to be here? Because obviously they made a redesign to make improvements, but will the Ford still dominate super speedways?
I don't think we're going to know for like a month. There are certain things with wind tunnel tests, and I know that they've done and so forth, but I'm getting asked the question actually of Jonathan a week or two ago about that. And they really don't, because part of the problem is you're going to have 2 manufacturers that have changed over. So you're going to have what would be probably about 16 to 18 cars out there, totally different than they were last year, and having to interact with each other as far as Fords interacting with each other, but then having to interact with the Toyotas and what they're going to be like, and then having to interact with the Chevys. This week should be really, really wild. The duels Thursday night, hopefully it will shake out. But what's interesting is that you're right. They changed the nose last year, and this is a whole other change this year. But the thing is Penske still had a championship both years, the first 2 years of the new car. So I think that knowing how smart Jonathan, Tony, and his crew are, I think that to some extent it matters right off the bat. Okay, you're going to get these changes. You're going to see what they do. You're going to try to work around them. But as the year goes on, you're going to see how they adapt to it, what type of things they can change to help it. And, the biggest thing is the 1.5 miles were a little bit lacking. So does this help them on 1.5 miles right off the bat? And can they adjust as the year goes on and keep doing the things that they were doing to be so fast at the end of the year? So I have total faith and confidence in Jonathan and his ability to, make a change or figure out a way if something isn't just right. But hopefully what happens is this is a change that's totally positive right off the bat. And then he's just playing in the sandbox, having a good time,
I'm almost more interested to see what happens with the Camry, especially on super speedways, because the way that they've reshaped the nose of that Toyota, it looks like it's a little bit more adept to push or bump drafting. And we did see, was it Christopher Bell? Is that the one who tagged Ryan in the back at the summer Daytona race where Ryan was leading? Some of the Camry nose kind of came out to a point a little bit. It just didn't seem like it locked bumpers well with other cars. So I feel like they almost maybe gave up a little bit aerodynamically to get a little bit better at super speedways. And I don't know if that's a Denny Hamlin push, somebody that had been dominant on those tracks until the new car, but I guess we're going to have to see what happens there, and we'll know soon enough, especially when we get to Daytona this week.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have a couple super speedway races pretty quick off the bat this year on the schedule. So, but Thursday night, and really what would be really interesting is what happens Wednesday night with qualifying. So hopefully you've listened to this by Wednesday night, because generally the Fords gave up speed and didn't worry about qualifying as much as maneuverability and how that car was going to draft. We'll know right off the bat if this makes a big difference just watching qualifying, as long as there's no weird wind changes and so forth when they go out there. Because years past it's Hendrick at the front. So if a couple of the Penske cars are actually in that top 5 or so, come the end of the night, Wednesday night, we'll know that it probably made a difference.
Now, something else that's changing with all of the cars in 2024, and it was something that was a hot topic, man, second half of the year, all the way through the playoffs, and actually after the championship race, because NASCAR held some tests, and that's going to be the short track package for these cars in 2024. They're going to introduce a simplified rear diffuser that has fewer vertical strakes in the back. The idea here is to lower the downforce at the front of the car. They're also going to add a little bit to the spoiler, going from a 2-inch to a 3-inch spoiler. They've been fighting this with this new car, trying to get short tracks better and better, because out of the gate, this car was amazing on 1.5 miles. It fixed that. And that was something with the previous generation was lacking a little bit. But then they get to these short tracks, Bristol and Martinsville and Richmond, flatter tracks like New Hampshire, then even the championship race, at Phoenix. And the racing and the excitement was lacking a little bit. So they've been pushing really hard to try to fix this. They had multiple tests last year. No one seemed necessarily excited. So what are your expectations for these changes in 2024?
Does it make the car looser? Is that what they're looking for? Because the racing becomes better if it's looser, right? If it makes the car looser, then fabulous, because we know that what Ryan can do with a loose race car. He was just on Parker Klingerman's podcast last week, and that's what he said. He said he's better at driving a loose race car than anything else, and it fits his driving style, right? So if it made the car a little looser, that's fabulous. I guess Christopher Bell did pretty well with the test. We didn't hear a lot about what Ryan did at the test when he was there in Phoenix, but being at the test period is like an advantage, because you're giving the ultimate feedback right away. You know what the differences were. You know what you had to operate with. So he's going to be just a hair of a step ahead of the other guys until they go practice the first time. So yeah, I can't wait to see what it actually does. If it does a big difference, a minor difference, I know that a couple people kept saying, let's change the horsepower,
Yeah.
That's not, I don't think there's some people say do that. And, and there are other people saying if you do it, it doesn't do anything. So I don't know what to go with there, but I mean, let's see what this adjustment does first, because here's another thing. They've made adjustments halfway through a season before too. It's just a matter of whether they can implement the adjustment, whether it's cost effective. whether it's something that's a minor thing that all the teams can, do over a short time span or not. So
Yeah. I really thought this would be when they would make a change to the gear ratio. And again, I don't know that much about the mechanics of the car, the engine, especially when you talk about horsepower, all that stuff. But all I know, and I've said it multiple times last year and the year before with the next gen car, I hate that they're shifting constantly. I hate that. Seems like that's all they're worried about at Martinsville, is shifting, shifting, shifting. Some drivers say they want to get rid of it. Other drivers, or no, they're like, no, I don't mind the shifting. And I think that's because of what it does is they could blow a corner, drop a gear, and then keep going and not necessarily lose any of their momentum. So I think some might be afraid of losing that. My other concern with this short track package, we're coming out of second last race of the year. We were at that race, Martinsville Speedway, the 12 car, something that Jonathan Hassler, his team of engineers figured out at the shop heading into Martinsville. Their car was by far better than every single other car in that entire field. He passed cars on his way to victory on the outside, after the different pit stop strategies played out. I'm nervous that they'll lose something, but I also know the rest of the field could probably catch up and maybe figure out what they were onto. But man, there was nobody in Martinsville that was better than that 12 car. So part of me is like, I don't know, maybe don't touch the short track package because I want to see some more grandfather clocks showing up in folks, the crew members and Ryan and everyone's houses.
These guys are all pretty close to each other. They have different driving styles as a whole. But sometimes when you hit on something with the right driver at the right place, it's pretty special. And so, some teams may catch up, but it doesn't mean their drivers can handle whatever that catch up is, So I'm not too worried just yet.
Also worth noting that Ryan Blaney was really, really, really good at Martinsville. Probably one of the best drivers at Martinsville without a victory going into 2023. And finally, he kind of gets over that hump and gets the clock. So I think they finally put everything together. So we'll see what happens in 2024. But much like super speedways, no matter the car, no matter the rules package, Ryan's been good everywhere throughout his career, and that's continued to go forward. So those are kind of the changes with the cars, the Ford, the Toyota, short track package, things like that. Some of the other changes that are going to be coming at us in 2024 are changes to the schedule. There's not a ton of drastic things, but there is some new stuff that are going to create some buzz throughout the year as we go on. And how do you think about, we'll just kind of roll through some of those. And one of them going to start right off the bat, right after this week at Daytona. Instead of going out west, the Cup Series is just going to head a little bit north from Daytona to Atlanta Motor Speedway. 2 super speedway style races are going to kick off the 2024 season as they head to Atlanta and race there on Sunday, February 25th. I can tell you myself, I'm already packing. I packed coats last year when that race was at sometime in March, but man, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a little bit chilly. Track's going to be super gripped up, but hopefully there's enough cars after the carnage that could take place at Daytona to race the next week at Atlanta, doing a similar style event.
Yeah, I'm sure they're already prepping the Atlanta car right now as we speak. But didn't they used to go to Atlanta the second race of the year before under the old schedule way back when? I mean,
yep.
I don't think, so this is something that they've done before. All these schedule changes, you said new schedule. I don't think this is going to be something that's going to be like this next year. A lot of what we're going to talk about has to do with the Olympics and NBC's coverage of the Olympics versus, having the rights to the NASCAR season. So, the things we're going to hear about are going to be great to try as an experiment, but I don't think when 25 rolls around with its new television partners, we're going to see quite the same thing. As a matter of fact, those television partners are going to ask for certain things maybe back the way they were for obvious reasons.
Yeah. And the other reason for this move for Atlanta moving up is the fact that Auto Club, California Speedway out there, or what's left of it, is not online as a short track yet. And they said they're not even confident that it'll be ready for 2025. I think initially the target date they announced while the pandemic was still happening that maybe this year or even last year would have been the year it would have been turned into a short track. But that project stalled mightily over the last couple of years. I've seen when Jeff Gluck and some other reporters were out there for the Clash, they went and stopped by and paid their respects, I guess, to the old track out there. So that's part of the reason why Atlanta has moved up, because that West Coast swing is now just down to a 2-race swing between Las Vegas and Phoenix that are going to be the third and fourth races of the year.
Yeah, I don't really know if if they're going to do anything with California. You sound pretty confident, but I've heard different things. I've heard like, dude, we're not sure, and nobody's really said yet. And other people are like, yeah, they're going to do that. And till there's an official announcement and they actually start moving toward building something, I don't know if I believe anything's going to happen there.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, a lot of it's being eaten up by development because that land around there is just so much more valuable to sell or lease than it is necessarily to be a racetrack. So I'm confident that they want to be in that market. That's the only reason why I think something will stick around there. It's just going to be in a much smaller footprint, and I just hope they do all the iRacing tests that they possibly can to make sure the racing there will end up being pretty good. Next change that's coming our way in 2024, Bristol Motor Speedway, the spring race moves up a little bit earlier to March 17th, and they've ditched the dirt. We're back on concrete at Bristol, back to 2 concrete races at Bristol. What are your thoughts? Are you going to miss it being dirt? Are you going to miss it being on Easter weekend? And what do you think about it moving up just a little bit earlier in the year?
Well, yeah, it moves back to where it was because it always used to be around the end of March before, and that's okay. Are they still going to put dirt down after they're there and have those other racing series? That was the one. Yeah, that was the one thing that I really, really liked about it was, okay, yeah, we're going to do this, but we're also going to have, all these other dirt series be able to come in and race in this arena, and to see different the different things come through there, sprint cars and and so forth come through there. It just was fabulous to watch some of that too, and I thought that was a great thing that was like a byproduct of what they were doing. Is like, okay, we're going to put this in here, we're going to put all this dirt in here, we're going to rearrange things a little bit, but we're going to run some other stuff too, so you get to see other things, and you get to see the dirt car guys got to go in there, and that for those guys, that'd be fabulous to be able to do, so that part I think I'm going to miss more than anything else is getting to see some of our sprint car guys get to race there.
Yeah, it's definitely a good opportunity for him, the more the grassroots level racer, and then obviously the elite folks from the World of Outlaw series and the late model series that had an opportunity to race there on that kind of big stage. I am thankful that I did get to go to at least one of the cup races on dirt. It was the second year that they ran there, and Ryan had a pretty decent run. So I'm glad I got to experience it. Am I going to miss it? Not necessarily. Maybe once this race is held, and hopefully if it's not good, then we'll see. I think if it's not good, we might be looking at that spring race date getting replaced by, Nashville Fairgrounds or something in the future if they can get things squared away with the government there. But we'll have to see where that goes. But I don't know. I'm going to be happy to see it on concrete one more time, but let's just see what happens.
I want to go back to dirt somewhere. Maybe not do the type of thing where you take an asphalt track and cover it.
Right.
Let's go to a dirt track that's an actually really good dirt track, and still have one dirt race. Because I think what was cool about it is, you got these guys who, in the last 10 to 15 years, have went from just driving ovals to ovals and road courses and street courses. And then you added dirt to it too. And I thought that was really great. Even if it was just one race on dirt, one street race, that's fabulous because they should be able to do all these other things. They should be able to know, how to race a different discipline of racing in those cars, So I think they really ought to go to another dirt track somewhere, an actual dirt track.
Next change that's coming up in 2024, Texas Motor Speedway moves out of the playoffs and into the spring. We're going to race there on April 14th. Now, we could probably have our own episode on Texas itself. It's a very, a lot of fans aren't necessarily happy with how that track was reconfigured. Ryan Blaney did pick up an all-star victory there. He's picked up victory there, I think, probably on the previous version, though, in the Xfinity series. It's going to be cooler, much cooler. I know when they were there in the fall last year, the temperatures were very high, very hot for the fans and the drivers in the car. So, again, we're going to see maybe instead of a slick, hot track, it's going to be another gripped up track. I don't know if that will change the racing at Texas. we'll have to wait and see until April. But what do you think of this move? I think personally, to me, I think it's a good move for the fans. I think it's a good move maybe to get that track out of the playoffs specifically. And let's see what they can do in April instead of the fall.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing is that get it out of the playoffs because it didn't do anything for the playoffs. Nothing till it becomes something different, till they figure out what to do to make it better. Whatever they got to do to make it better. It just, it's probably a good move just to get it out of the playoffs.
Next up, after 18 years, Iowa Speedway gets its first NASCAR Cup Series date. NASCAR is going back to that track as a whole for the first time since 2019. So they've been away a little bit. They had Xfinity races there. They had truck races there in the past. ARCA races has raced there. They've also run recently a lot of like doubleheader IndyCar series races there the last few years as well. So Iowa Speedway, something that a lot of people have been asking for years. We're going to finally get to see the Cup cars go there, at least for this year. I think the sanctioning body has said this wasn't a replacement for going to Canada like everyone thought they were going to do, that this isn't just a one-season deal. I think that remains to be seen when that 2025 schedule comes out. But hey, why not? Let's see what happens at Iowa. I mean, the fans, I'm pretty sure that place will be sold out. It's not huge. I think they do have to bring in some temporary stands, much like they do at Nashville Superspeedway. So I'm looking forward to it. Something different. Let's see what happens.
I think it actually already is sold out. I thought I read somewhere, but
maybe it is.
Why did you build that place in the first place if you weren't going to use it, right? And to give it a shot here is a good thing because let's see what happens. Let's see how the racing is on it. It's a little bit different type of track than they would go to anywhere else. So I think it's and Ryan's had good success there too.
Yes,
in the truck series, right?
Yep. So this isn't new for 2024, but hopefully it gets a better shot at succeeding. I think it succeeded as far as race excitement went, but as far as the fan experience goes, I think they deserve a lot better. That's going to be July 7th for the Chicago Street Race. Second year that they're doing this, Steve. I thought last year I definitely found myself, Ryan wasn't necessarily in the hunt. I found myself rooting for SVG just for the chaos and just, seeing a guy that came in there and was able to dominate a race late. Now, was it because everyone was going back and forth between the wet weather tires and the slicks and who could handle that, who could manage that? They hit on something with SVG and he went to victory lane in his first ever Cup race. So what do you think about Chicago? What do you think about street racing?
I'm hoping that the weather holds off. That's the big thing. To get a little bit of rain's one thing, but it was a deluge. It was so bad, and they had to alter the Xfinity race and how long the distance was on that. And they did a great job getting it in, all things considered. But let's see what the event is like under the regular conditions, underneath it does, rain could be a factor, but not a deluge, rain that you can run in, rain that you could actually race in is fine. But just some of the things they had to go through, last year, just hopefully that won't happen. Like you said, the fan part of the experience too would be the interesting thing too, because a lot of the concerts and things that were set up around the event were all canceled because of that weather. So let's give everybody to get their money's worth out of it,
Other change that I'm looking forward to, I have on my schedule, July 21st, the Brickyard 400 returns on the oval at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Hopefully we do travel up there and get to see this race in person. First time in Indianapolis for us. So what do you think about that? Off the road course after a couple of years, back onto the traditional oval. I know this is something, except for maybe Michael McDowell, AJ Allmendinger might not be too excited about it because of their success on the road course. But I just think the prestige is there, even if the race isn't exciting. Let's see what these next gen cars can do out there. Let's bring back one of NASCAR's crown jewels.
I don't know. Ryan had good success there on the road course, believe it or not. I mean, if he doesn't get punted by a bunch of, rambunctious others, he probably finishes top 5 the one time, finished second, had a really good strategy at one point in the one race where he did get punted, where they come out of the pits and almost came out with the lead. There's a lot of things that he did really well there actually, and was pretty good at handling the way that course was set up. So yeah, I kind of, all I have is a bad memory of the Brickyard. I have that year that the tires were horrible. They tried to create a tire. They wanted a tire that gave, and it gave way too much, and they had to kept calling cautions every 15 to 20 laps. And, the racing has never been super there because of that. They can never get a tire that falls off, because if you look at that racing surface as a whole, it's like a big cheese grater, and it was tearing up tires. And if you go with the too hard of a tire, you don't have cars moving around as much. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, because it's once again, we're, a generation of different cars now too. Interesting to see with this car, how it operates going in the proper direction there. So yeah, let's see what happens. Hopefully the racing ends up being good. That's the main thing.
So after this July 21st race at Indianapolis, we are on an Olympic break all the way until the August 11th race weekend for the Cookout 400 at Richmond Raceway. So 2-week break from NASCAR Cup Series racing while NBC goes and covers the Olympics. This is the first break teams are going to get all year long in the Cup Series. So they're going to be going, 28 races or something like that, crazy, all the way until this Olympic break. And I'm sure some of the team members are going to try to at least take a whole week off, spend some time with families, because, we've interviewed several of them, and that's one of the things they always talk about, that grind. But I know a couple of podcasters out there that might be welcome to having at least a couple of breaks, maybe, from spouting off opinions. What do you think?
I don't know, 130 episodes so far. How many have I missed?
0, Steve.
You are correct, sir. I was thinking about that when you said 130 episodes. Yeah, it is what it is. It'd be kind of cool if NBC does some things and maybe brings one or two of the drivers over to Paris with them, and lets them help them with the broadcast there. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know what
I hope NBC just rehires Dale Earnhardt Jr. That was kind of the bombshell thing last week that came out, right?
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, why not? What about that, man? Who let that go?
I have a bad feeling that it's a negotiating ploy for sure. And, there's going to be new television partners next year. So there are some things, but I listen to the download every week with him. And when he would recap his weekend's broadcasting last year, there were a couple things that he said flat out he didn't like them. He didn't like the way they did it. He didn't like the production of the segment. He didn't like the fact he was scrambling back to the booth halfway through the first stage. He was missing parts of the race because of it, missing, things that may have been important later in the race. And he just flat out said that. And the truth is maybe this is part of the negotiation ploy. Maybe he's like, you can re-sign me, but we can't do any more of that crap. I got to be in the booth, And I said to you, we were talking about this via text the one day, and I says, let's hire Rutledge Wood back and let Rutledge run around the track like a madman right before the race and do all these things that you had Junior and Jeff Burton doing. Or, if you can't get Rutledge, I know a couple guys that would fit that role really good. Mamba would be awesome at doing that. Plus he's a guy who actually has raced before too. So, but this whole thing, I think it has a lot to do with that. And he's not going to come out flat out and say that. But money, I don't think is an object. I mean, he's got his empire, his Dirty Mo Media empire has gotten bigger and bigger. He was an executive producer on the Netflix documentary. So I can't see it being about money. I think it has to do more about control of the broadcast, so that he's not, just being a show pony, per se. And even in the first beginning of the race, if something happens and he's not up in the booth, I feel it. I feel the difference. I don't, you miss that excitement that he might yell something, that he sees, because he does give you that. He just blurts something out sometimes, and that's, that's half the fun. So yeah, that's my opinion on that.
100% agreement with you and with him when he's talked about, he tries sometimes to say like, oh, it's good experience for me to do these other things, but he still always circles back to the fact that I wish I was just in the booth giving my analysis. He's even tried, being the lead commentator sometimes when Rick Allen isn't there. And I think he likes that challenge too, maybe just
Right.
professionally, but he still wants to just be in the booth. And man, NBC, figure this out, get him signed back up. We need Dale Earnhardt Jr. in this sport in that capacity, I think. But if not, tons of big things are happening at Dirty Mo. They brought in the teardown. They have extra shows now. I mean, they're their own NASCAR motorsports media conglomerate. So maybe there comes a point in time where, Dale Earnhardt Jr. doesn't need to be on TV. He can do his own thing. So again, brought that up just because we're talking about that Olympic break and it's all happening because of NBC. So I thought that was definitely a good segue into a little bit of conversation about good old Dale Jr. So we come back again from the Olympic break. We go to Richmond. We go to Michigan. We go to Daytona International Speedway on August 24th for the Coke Zero Sugar 400, the cutoff of the regular season. Not this year, though, Steve, because of that Olympic break, because of the way the schedule falls. Unfortunately, Daytona is going to be the penultimate race of the regular season because we're going to end things at the Cookout Southern 500, still on its traditional Labor Day weekend, September 1st. So it's going to be at a historic track still. It's going to be at a very tough track, but in a different way, definitely than Daytona. What do you think about ending the regular season, at least for 1 year, with the Southern 500?
Yeah, that's what I said earlier about that. I don't think this is something that's going to stick because they discovered the formula with putting that Daytona race as the last race because it gives, like I said, it gives everybody a chance who's not in the playoff picture. You have that whole thing where a guy like Corey LaJoie could win the race, put himself in the playoffs, knock out somebody who's had a halfway decent year, but is at the bottom of the point standings. So they want that back, and you're not going to get that at any other track than Daytona or Talladega. Those are the type of tracks they want that type of race at. And this year, like you said, it was because of the dates and how it fell. And next year they'll clean it back up.
Atlanta Motor Speedway is affected by another change in the schedule, this time moving out of their July date and moving into September. September the 8th, Atlanta is where the NASCAR Cup Series is going to kick off the 2024 playoffs, adding another super speedway style race into the playoffs to go alongside Talladega Super Speedway. So we kick off the year, super speedway style race. We're going to kick off the playoffs with a super speedway style race.
Yeah, this will be interesting, because you'll have two of them in the playoffs now, with Talladega coming up later round. So yeah, we went to Atlanta last year and got to see one live, but on TV too. What they did with the track at first, I thought, I don't know how this is gonna work, but really it works quite well. They've adjusted a couple things with coming to pit road and so forth under green conditions because they were having some issues trying to slow down, come off the track, so forth. So they adjusted those kind of things, got those things a little more organized. I can't wait to see what happens. It should be pretty cool.
Another style track that gets duplicated in the playoffs. This was a big change, especially for a lot of fans out there that like camping. Watkins Glen moves into the playoffs September 15th. So I can't remember off the top of my head what their normal date was, but it definitely wasn't this late in the year. So they're disrupting maybe some people's traditional vacations as far as camping goes, since that's such a big thing there. But now we're going to have two road course races in the playoffs with Watkins Glen and the Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Watkins Glen, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, where does it fall in the round? Is it it's the middle of the round, right?
It is the second race of the round of 16.
The second race. So I guess it's okay there because you want that Roval. Roval is always the end of a round kind of a thing, This is where Chase Elliott probably, because this is his best track, I think. And this will be, if he's in the playoffs, this will be where he wins this race to move on to the next round. I know we're not in the prediction thing yet, but that's just what I see happening.
So you bring up the playoffs and the round. So why don't we? So those were kind of all the big major schedule changes for the year. Obviously, like I said, some of these things would create some buzz. Some of these things are going to throw a wrench into some people's plans, whether it's how they plan for the year or how race teams plan their year. But I think there's still plenty of excitement to go around. I'm kind of looking forward a little bit to that Darlington cutoff race. Let's see what they can do there. But let's go through the rounds now. Round of 16. It's going to, again, as we said, start September 8th, Atlanta Motor Speedway, then September 15th, Watkins Glen. The round of 16 will end September 21st with the Bass Pro Shops night race at Bristol Motor Speedway. So round of 16, Atlanta, Watkins Glen, Bristol. That is a treacherous round to open up the Cup Series playoffs.
Yeah, but I think for our purposes, for who we follow, that should be a lot of fun. He was really, really good with Atlanta, and under that configuration. Watkins Glen, who knows? There are some points and times in the last 2 years where they were really good with the road course packages, and then there were points and times really bad with the road course packages. So let's see what happens. But then Bristol's Bristol,
Yep.
Really, really fun that being at the end of a round is a really, really great thing too. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Bristol's a good track for Blaney too. I mean, he's won in there in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. He's come close, had some really good cars there in the past in the Cup Series. So it's time for him to pick up that win there and finally get a sword. He never got a sword for his other 2 wins there in the other 2 series. He's always mentioned that. So time for Ryan to get his own sword from Bristol. Playoffs round of 12 starts September 29th, Kansas Speedway, October 6th, Talladega Superspeedway. And as you said, it's going to end the round October 13th with the Bank of America Roval 400 at Charlotte. So you have a 1.5 miles, a superspeedway road course in the round of 12. I mean, I don't think there's really is a round that's not challenging. This is another one.
Once again, for our purposes here, Talladega last year looked pretty good. It just moved around a little bit now. Yeah, I did all right. The 1.5 miles, so let's see what the new body does on the 1.5 miles. Maybe we'll find a little bit extra there. Of course, last year, in the next round, they did have the speed at the 1.5 miles. So maybe whatever they discovered as the year went on last year will be there for them too. So yeah, I see this as being a pretty good round for everybody, and hopefully you don't get to the Roval where you need to win or collect points.
Playoffs round of 8 kicks off October 20th at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Then they move to Homestead Miami Speedway October 27th, and then it finishes off the round of 8 November 3rd Martinsville Speedway. 2023. That was one heck of a round for Ryan Blaney. This was a championship-defining round for Ryan Blaney.
Yep. Cue the Chris Conklin clip, and just repeat. Right? I mean, they're going to win one of these 3. Doesn't matter. He's good at all 3, and then let's get to Phoenix. Right? So, yeah, that's the part that's great about this, and this is the thing about the format and the way it's set up. Until they start swapping tracks out every other year. If they're going to keep it this way, Penske cars figured this out. Get to that round, get your guy in that round, and then, blow them away for 3 weeks. Get yourself in the championship.
And then for the 3rd or 4th year in a row, the NASCAR Cup Series Championship is going to be held at Phoenix Raceway, November 10th. And hopefully we're celebrating the first back-to-back NASCAR Cup Series Championship feat by Ryan Blaney in this elimination format. Hopefully that's what we're celebrating on November 10th next year. And that might be a prediction. And I think we should talk some predictions. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, this is the 5th year in a row, right?
Is it? It's been a while.
Chase, did Kyle win the championship there too?
Larson did too, because they got
Chase,
off pit road first.
Joey, Ryan, there's 4 right there. So yeah.
5th year in a row.
Yeah.
There we go. Come back to Homestead.
Predictions to go. Yeah, you want that. Predictions to go wrong, right? Or too early. Predictions too early.
These are definitely maybe the too early predictions, especially since we don't know what's going to happen with this dark horse body. We don't know what's going to happen with all the other race teams, but I think it'd be fun for us to go through some predictions here and tally them up and keep them locked away all the way through the season. And then when we do the season finale episode, maybe we can come back to these and see where we ended up. So Steve, in 2024, how many top 10s will Ryan Blaney tally? And I will give you, in 2023, it was 18. I feel like we need the Jeopardy music or something.
Yeah, I'm writing. I'm sorry, I'm doing a little writing here because I'll have them written down too for us to go back and look at. Let's go 20.
20.
Yeah, let's go a little more.
I'm gonna just do one more, and I'm going to say 19.
All right.
Steve, how many top fives will the 12 team tally in 2024? In 2023, it was actually a little bit of a down year, if you can say that for a championship run, compared to the last few years. He only got 8 last year. Prior to that, it was 12, 11, 11, 11, and 8 back in 2018. So 8 top fives in 2023. What will he do in 2024?
11. Let's say 11. I like that number.
I will say, I don't want to just keep going one below you, but I'm going to say 10. And it might be fair for me to switch this up and me go first and then you go second on this next one. I didn't think about that. I didn't think this through.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that. In 2024, how many wins will Ryan Blaney accrue over the season? So 3-win season last year matched his total from a couple of years ago when he won 3 wins. So I want this multi-win seasons to keep on rolling. And I'm going to say, man, I don't want to go under, but I'm going to say 4. I was going to say 2, but I'm going to go with 4. 12 car wins 4 races in 2024. What do you think?
6.
6. Man, Steve is coming out.
That's right.
With the big shot of optimism.
Did you see the last TikTok I did?
You were. You're ready to run through a wall.
That's it. That last year was a practice run.
All right, Steve, 2024, what will the average finish be for the 12 team? If we look at last year, it was 14.1. The previous year, 13.6. The year prior to that, 2021, when he won those 3 races, 11.9. So 14.1 last year. What will the average finish be for the 12 car in 2024?
Maybe 11.7. I got him winning all these races. He's going to finish up there higher.
I will say, oh man, this would not make sense with my top 10 prediction. I'm going to be all over the place. Maybe that's okay. I'm going to say 10.9.
Ooh.
That's bold because that means they're averaging
nice.
a top 10. I don't know. Why not? You said 6 wins. I'll say yeah.
And the bad races aren't very bad.
Yeah, that's true.
You're saying he doesn't DNF very much, and maybe he finishes 15th instead of 28th, or things like that. So yeah, I can see that. There are ways to justify those numbers.
Now, I think this is a given, and I think we'll both say yes. Will Ryan Blaney make the playoffs in 2024? It's yes for me. I'm assuming it's a yes for you.
Yeah, I mean, if not, there's something that went bad, and we don't want to talk like that. So,
will Ryan Blaney? How do I want to phrase this? I guess we'll just go with it because if he wins the championship, that means he made the championship 4, and this could still be the answer. Will Ryan Blaney win the championship in 2024 and go back to back?
I'm of the mind of Dale Jr.
Back to back. All right.
Let's do this.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to say he is not going to win the championship, and that's not because I'm not confident in his team. I think it's just so hard. It's such a volatile race. You saw what happened to Christopher Bell in the championship 4. Mm-hmm. You saw what they had a car that could overcome what happened on the last pit stop, which wasn't necessarily a crew issue. It was just the way things shook out. So I'm going to say no, but I predict he's going to make the championship 4.
Okay, that's the thing is like, excuse me, I used to be of the mindset to not jinx something. Don't jinx it. Don't talk about it. Don't jinx it. But now, after listening to and seeing these guys and the confidence in themselves, the confidence in the team and in themselves, like I said, I said Q Chris Conklin up earlier, I mean, that's the kind of confidence they have in themselves. That's the confidence that Brian has in himself. And it's just speaking things into existence too. That's the mindset. It's like, you believe you can do it, you're going to do it. And I feel that way right now. I feel like they really believe they can win every week coming up in these next couple of months, and down the stretch, they're going to do everything to execute to get to where they need to be. And then this year, I think he wins the race itself too. We don't mess around with Ross Chastain.
I agree with you 100% on this confidence thing, because if you watch the Netflix documentary, which we didn't really kind of recap or anything on the podcast, but they interviewed Ryan in that last round of the playoffs, and he basically said nobody's been faster than us. Basically he didn't call a shot, but basically said, like, we're the fastest car, we should win the championship. And he mentioned, he has his dad kind of being his coach all the way through the playoffs, telling him that he's a champ, he has the best shot at being the champion, he's the best driver there, there's a path that he can go on. You hear that at the top of our audio version of the show now. There's a path, they can see it. So you're right. I mean, there is no more jinx anymore. All of those guys, we talked to Ryan Flores, he said he told Roger Penske at Joey Logano's championship party the previous year that the 12 car was going to go and win the championship too. So it's from the top to bottom. Everybody there at Penske is confident that they will be champions, and they've done it 2 years in a row. Let's be like the Chiefs. Let's make this thing a dynasty for Team Penske and go for 3. I don't think the 2 car is going to be the one that steps up and does it this year. So we got the 12 and the 22 to do it, and I'm hoping that it's the 12 that becomes, as I said, the first one to go back to back in this format, and that would be awesome to see. So we've previewed the whole year 2024. We've mentioned Daytona along the way, and that is going to kick off the season, and that's happening this weekend. Daytona International Speedway. Man, I'm already rusty, and with second episode in. Daytona International Speedway here in Florida. Don't want to talk about the weather, Steve, because it's like this every year. It's we're recording this on a Monday. Who knows what's going to happen? Right now, things don't look great for the weekend, but I'm hoping it's just one of those days where maybe it sprinkles a little bit here and there. We can get this race in, because I'm really looking forward to this. But things are going to kick off this Wednesday, February 14th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series Daytona 500 qualifying. You can catch that on FS1. As of right now, I believe there's 41 cars entered into this race, unless they've added another in the last couple hours. But
I saw 42.
So if it's 42, it's a 40-car field. So there could be a little bit of drama between Wednesday, because times are going to matter for those cars that are trying to get in that don't have a charter. If you are fast, if you're among the top 2 fastest of the non-charter teams on Wednesday, you're going to lock yourself into the race. And then after that, it's going to be your result in the dual races. And those dual races are going to happen on Thursday, February 15th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series Blue-Green Vacation Duels, also on FS1. Ryan Blaney is a past winner of one of these dual races. That was an exciting year to see him go on and win that. And why don't we kick off 2024 with another trip to victory lane, especially at a place at Daytona? I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, Wednesday night, like I said earlier, Wednesday night, I can't wait to see what happens, because you're going to see an immediate thing with the Fords and the new body in qualifying and how they're trimmed out. And we'll probably see if it makes a difference or not, as long as nobody really messes their lap up. I can't wait to see what happens there.
So Wednesday night qualifying, Thursday night the duels, Friday. So imagine this: we've qualified, we've raced, and then finally on Friday, let's get a practice in. So 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series practice on FS1. So they're finally going to practice these cars. I still think this is a little bit backwards. I still wish they would put at least a short practice before qualifying, because we saw a couple of years ago, guys hit the pit road to go out and qualify, and their car won't start, or Connor, I forget his last name, but his car's just bouncing up. Connor Daly's car's just bouncing up and down like crazy, and that's something they could have caught if they had at least one practice. I say just move one practice up there before qualifying and make me happy. But
make it a non-drafting practice where you can't draft with anybody, but at least give everybody a chance to shake the car down. Yeah, that would make sense.
So 5:30 p.m. Friday, that's that first practice.
And then the truck race is Friday night, correct?
It is. I didn't put any times down for the other series this time, but you can go and
well, here's the thing. I want to mention it because he's somewhere else now. But if you're following Josh Williams, he is going to spot in the truck series and Xfinity series. And the truck series is going to be the number 38 truck, front row, of Lane Riggs this weekend. So if you want to still follow Josh around a little bit and hear him on other races like I used to do, he's still going to be in the truck series. It won't be Zane anymore, but it'll be Lane Riggs and the 38 truck. And then the Xfinity series on Saturday, it's the number 9 car of Brandon Jones in the Xfinity series. So Josh can be a very, very busy man this season. So if you do get the scanner and you want to listen in and hear Josh, you might miss him on Sunday, but on Fridays and Saturdays, he's still in the Truck Series and still in the Xfinity Series.
So Friday, that truck race is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, also on FS1. On Saturday, 10:30 a.m., Cup Series final practice on FS1. So they'd get that one practice on Friday. They're going to get another practice on Saturday to make sure their Daytona 500 cars are dialed in. Then later on Saturday, we have a doubleheader here. We have the ARCA Menard Series at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then they have the Xfinity Series at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Both of those are going to be on FS1. The ARCA Series, man, has a huge field of cars trying to make this race. A lot of interesting people trying to make this race. Actually, it's kind of cool for me. There's like 2 or 3 local Florida drivers that I see at short tracks around here that have put some ARCA cars together, and I'm looking forward to see what they can do. Another interesting thing for people that are following the Xfinity Series is this. I don't know. Is this what I'm going to say? I don't know what I'm going to say.
Go ahead. I think I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
Frankie Muniz.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to talk about Frankie.
Wait a minute. Frankie, what about the guy that they're making somebody who's driving the Xfinity race the ARCA race?
Oh, yeah. Shane Van Gisbergen's going to be running in the ARCA race to hopefully qualify to be able to run the Xfinity. I think he's going to run Xfinity no matter what. But that's kind of the idea, to get him some experience out there on the super speedway. So Shane, I don't know what car he's driving. I'm sure he will have Trackhouse support in some form or fashion. But yeah, he's going to be in the ARCA race. Xfinity Series race, he's going to be running for Colleague Racing full time, so he's going to have a taste of that there. But yeah, I was just going to offhand, Frankie Muniz is going to make his NASCAR debut. He's been in the ARCA Series all last year. He's going to run for Joey Gase Motorsports. He says he's going to attempt to make his first race, but I think Gase had bought some points and stuff, unless they're spreading that around to one of their other cars. So it's a decent chance that the former star Malcolm in the middle is going to have an opportunity to run in his first NASCAR sanctioned race there in the top 3 series of the sport. So 5 p.m. Eastern time, Xfinity Series, United Rentals 300. And then Sunday, we get to the big show, kicking off the 2024 season at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, the NASCAR Cup Series 2024, Daytona 500. Everything else has been on FS1. This one's going to be on the big network on Fox. As I mentioned, there's rain in the forecast. There was points of the week where it was pointing to 85% chance rain. A little bit earlier today, I looked and it dropped down into the 60% chance rain, but the temperatures have been dropping too, down into the 60s. So it might be a little bit more of a chilly start to this Cup Series season. Hopefully not a super rainy start, but as we have talked about in the past, anytime that I go to a race, there's always a chance of weather. I made a joke in our Discord chat that I feel like I've spent more than half of my life waiting out rain delays under the grandstands at Daytona. So, I mean, nothing new, but man, I just wish we could, we had all that rain impact at the Clash, then we had a week off, and honestly, things were beautiful here last week in Florida. The weekend for the race for the 24 hours of Daytona looked like rain was threatening, but it actually held off until after the race was over. So I'm hoping that's what happens for us. We get this race in on Sunday, and Ryan Blaney is among one of the favorites to win the race.
Let me throw a couple names at you here real quick. Lee Petty, Richard Petty, Cale Yarborough, Jeff Gordon, Dale Jarrett. Do you know what those guys have in common at Daytona?
I'm going to guess that they are the only drivers to win a Daytona 500 as the defending Cup Series champion.
Oh, man, you cheater.
Gotcha.
That's awesome. I thought that was a super stat. Awesome. Something to think about. We have a defending champion, and Lee Petty in 1959, Richard in 1973, Yarborough in 77, Jeff Gordon did it in 1999, and Dale Jarrett did it in 2000. So let's see if Ryan can add his name to that list. Skip Flores, when you asked him the question last week about what the goals for this season, he said, "What's the first goal? Let's get the monkey off our back and win a 500." And don't forget your fantasy lineups too, by the way, because the NASCAR Fantasy Live League will be starting up this week. Just a quick thing on the fantasy league. It's full. It's been full for a couple of years now, but what I'm going to do is just what I've done the last few years. 2 weeks in, if you have not set a lineup
you're going to get the boot to let more Blaney fans in, because even if you get into the league after 2 or 3 weeks, there's still plenty of time to catch up and beat the likes of me, maybe the likes of Steve, I'm not sure, but at least the likes of me when it comes to the full season standings. So if you're not in the league, just kind of be a little bit patient. If you're interested at some point, if you go to the NASCAR Fantasy app and you search for Team Blaney Podcast, you'll find our league there. But it is full, I'm pretty sure, as far as I know right now. It kind of caps you at 100 unless you're with a major network or something like that. So we're capped at 100. Everybody's in there. But, I went through all the names just to see if there's anybody I could remove from last year. And I just felt like almost all the names I was looking at were people that throughout the season have finished in the top 5, top 10 of the weekly standings. So that's kind of a fun thing that we recap from week to week here on the podcast. So that was our 2024 What's New in 24 season preview. And I think we've made them wait long enough, Steve, for this. They've just been anticipating our second interview of the 2024 season on the Team Blaney podcast. And it's another one. We've been looking forward to this ever since we heard that this guy was going to be joining the number 12 team for this season. And that's going to be the brand new spotter for Ryan Blaney in Tim Fedewa. And we've got to welcome him here right now on to the Team Blaney podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So it's another year, a new season. We had Josh Williams, Ryan's previous spotter, depart the team at the end of 2024 after the championship run. Fans get a little bit nervous when things change, especially after something as big as a championship. But we got some great news after the end of the year that we had a really great replacement coming our way, and that's you, Tim. So what are your first thoughts on joining a new team, joining a championship winning team, and just that outlook on that change?
I mean, obviously, being somewhere, I was at SHR for 10 years. So it was, it was a little different coming over. You're a little bit apprehensive, but when I done some talking with everybody at Penske and Ryan and Jonathan, I started feeling a lot better about it. That was an opportunity that was just too good to pass up. So I'm so glad that we get to work together and glad that it all came together. The stars aligned. It's just, it's an amazing thing sometimes how everything comes together. And they won the championship. We talked a little bit before the end of the season. I knew the job was available or going to be available. And so I was excited with the prospects of talking to them at the end of the season. And it all worked out to where it is now. And now I'm just ready to go racing.
Now, when a lot of fans hear the name Tim Fedewa, they might think that sounds familiar, and it should sound familiar to a lot of people because you had a really successful and long career in motorsports as a driver before you even stepped into the role of spotter. One thing we like to do on these interviews with team members is we like to kind of tell your story, tell your background, and ask you a few questions about how your career progressed. So we go all the way back to the beginning, and I'm sure you've been asked this 1,000 times. What's your first memory of racing? How did you get into racing? And, where are you from? But from what I understand, racing was kind of like the family thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's what everybody did.
Yeah, it is. I mean, much like, Ryan's family, my grandfather did it. My grandmother even raced some. When she wasn't racing, she was working on my grandpa's car, and they raced in the 50s and even in the 40s a little bit. And then my dad and uncle came along, Butch and Gary. Butch is my father, Gary's my uncle, and they started racing. And then I was old enough to get going, and it just, that's all I've ever known since I was a baby is being at the racetrack. So it's pretty cool. I've never had a real job, so I mean that's awesome, right?
What's the first vehicle you got behind the wheel of, at least that you remember, that you really started to find success in?
Well, I mean, just a late model. I started on dirt up in northern Michigan. I'm from Holt, Michigan, Lansing area in southern Michigan, and just getting on the dirt track and ripping it up and thinking it's pretty cool. But the first real stuff we started, I got with the car owner, Ray and Dan DeWitt, and they brought me into some Art Goal Racing, which was competitive Midwest Late Model Series, and ASA. And then we moved everything down south to North Carolina and done some ARCA and Bush series racing, and that was really when it started going in a good direction. But didn't spend a lot of time at home racing. I was always on the road and at different tracks every week, and that was nice. I think, other than I was jealous a little bit of a lot of my buddies that raced local tracks and won track championships and stuff. I was always at a different track every week because that's kind of what my dad wanted me to do, just to get well-rounded. And I think he was right, but I always had regrets of not running, local tracks and being the 10-time track champion or something, the dreams, whatever dreams I had going on at that time. But I have no regrets now.
You had a mixture of dirt and asphalt, or just asphalt at that point? Or?
Well, I started on dirt. I ran maybe 2 years on dirt, and then quickly moved to asphalt in late models, super late models, and that was pretty much what I ran the rest of the time. Now, my dad and uncle, they run dirt sprint cars, super modifieds, dirt. Back then, you raced, if you had a late model, you raced dirt one night, dirt Friday night, and pavement on Saturday. You really didn't. My dad always says, if you don't tell the car, it won't know the difference. So we, that's what you did. And nowadays it's a little more separated, obviously. But back then you could do whatever you wanted, and you just change a car over and go racing. But it's a different time now for sure. But I always enjoyed racing in Michigan and doing a little bit of both.
Now, ASA and the ArtGo series and stuff that you're involved in, those are some pretty legendary series that a lot of legendary drivers that went on to become cup champions and stuff came through. What was it like racing at that level? And do you think that really got you prepared to make the jump into NASCAR after you guys, got all the way down to North Carolina?
I mean, it was hard. I never won an ASA. I won a race in ArtGo, the short track nationals in Rockford, Illinois, which was a cool win for me. But ASA, I think I finished third a couple times and came close. But you were racing with Butch Miller and Bob Seneker, Mike Eddy, Mark Martin at times. There was just a lot of different Dick Trickle, of course. And back then, you just, not that it's easy to win now or ever was, but it was particularly tough then. And I never stayed there long enough to just as I got going to where I felt I was getting really competitive each week, we moved down south and concentrated our effort in the Busch series. So that another little regret I had. I wish I could have stayed and raced a little longer. Perfect world in the ASA series and won some races and then moved down south. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. And I was fortunate enough to have good people behind me that paid my way in the sport. So very fortunate.
So you made that jump to what was then called the Busch Series, now Xfinity, and you raced there from 92 to around 2005-ish. And to give people, example here, I said you had a successful career, 4 wins, 25 top fives, 66 top tens across all of those seasons. It looks like your most successful season was around 1998 Kleenex car. I think if people think about you racing back then, that was probably one of your most popular cars in the photos that they'll see for Bill Bumgarner. What was so special about that time, maybe even specifically that year, where you picked up like 2 wins and tons of top tens, top fives? Like, what came together that year that really made you guys competitive?
I don't know. I think just the team I was with Base Motorsports. I mean, like you said, Bill Bumgarner. I was teammates with Randy LaJoie at the time, and they just won 2 championships back to back. And I think that was their third as a team. I think Johnny Benson won it a couple years before that. So the team that was the first when I joined it obviously went to a 2-car team, and they'd never done that before. So just had a lot of fun racing with Randy and LaJoie, of course. If you don't know Randy, you need to probably have him on your podcast. You ready? Everybody will watch, because you never know
buckle
what
up.
Randy's going to say. Yeah, buckle up. That's damn sure. But we just had a lot of fun then, and we had really good race cars, and it was just just everything fit right.
So you have a couple of connections to the Blaneys along the way that we'll talk about. One we were just interested in, it looks like, in around 2004, when you guys were with Fitz Bradshaw, Dave did run a few races with that team. Do you remember anything from that time, or when you guys maybe would have been just briefly teammates just for a week or two here?
Yeah, not really. I do remember. I mean, I remember watching Dave race,
Yep.
all over the place. I mean, just
Yeah.
he was a hero, right? Like, I also remember him racing against him at different tracks when he was in the Amoco car, I think.
Yep.
He raced that in the Bush. I think Bill Davis Racing, and
Yep.
so yeah, I have memories of it, and just kind of, it was always kind of cool to have him around, and I was a big open wheel guy, so obviously having him there was great for the series, and I actually, Corey LaJoy sent a picture of me, Randy, and Dave all in our fire suits behind our trailer somewhere. I don't know where he found that, but he sent it to me recently, and I didn't even. It was the first time I'd seen that picture in a long, long time, so that was pretty cool.
So you did before that Bradshaw deal, you did a little bit of spotting. Then you've got back in that car that I think you actually were spotting for briefly.
I did.
But then around 2006 is when you make the change, basically going spotting full time. Like, what went into that decision? Did you again think that you were done driving and this was going to be your new career, or were you not really sure?
I wasn't sure. I knew the everything was drying up as far as the driving goes. I was, I pretty much run my gamut. I was out of money. Never really had any money. Was just lucky enough to get rides. And back then, you could drive for people, and you didn't have to. It's a little different now. I mean,
Yeah.
you pay for your ride, and I mean, there's still a lot of talented drivers that don't have a lot of backing that are able to get rides, and I think it's cool. Sometimes it gets a little bit overstated that everybody's paying for the rides, and just in a lot of cases that's not true, right? But I knew my days were limited as a driver. I remember one of the teams calling me and said, "Hey man, you want to drive my car this weekend at Bristol?" I'm like, "Yes, I'd love to." And he goes, "Can you buy the tires?" And I'm like, I don't think so. So then I figured I better find something else to do, right? Like, and I was lucky enough to, Bill Elliott needed a spotter for some races when he was racing for his last, I think it was the second to last season with Ray, and I'd known Bill here and there, and I just got going with that, and I spotted for Kerry some when he was at Fitzbradshaw, Kerry Earnhardt. And it led into another career for me.
What would you, for those that are listening that have been used to listening to Josh on the radio the last several years, like what would you describe your spotting style as? We have the guys that are like coaches and cheerleaders. Josh was more like cool, calm, collected. We'd like to think. Like, where do you think you fall kind of in that range?
I try to be. I'm pretty calm and cool, I think, but I also try to, I don't know if coaching is the right word. It depends. You can spot up or spot down for whatever particular driver you have. Like obviously, I do the Xfinity series. I do a truck. I do so. And then I'm going to do Ryan. Like Ryan's got a lot of experience. I really don't have to tell him how to drive or help him with a situation that a young driver wouldn't know. So again, you spot up, you spot down, but I try to just I'll be a calm effect on the radio and try to keep everybody calm. And I don't know. I'm not. I don't talk all the time, but I talk a lot, and obviously I talk more. The speedway stuff, you're always talking. You never let off the mic. But I try to find a balance in between to where what makes the driver happy and not say a lot of stuff that's just chatter, But if that's what the driver wants, then that's what you do. But like I said, you spot up, you spot down, and we'll see. I haven't worked with Ryan that much. We did a test in December. I've known him for quite a long time, and but you never, once you get racing, these first few races it's going to be a learning. I'm not gonna lie, it's going to be a learning process. I have to learn what he wants. I've listened to Josh 1,000 times, just in him communicate, and Jonathan. So and if, in my opinion, I listen to Josh, it's like listening to me. where there's not much difference. I don't think you're going to say, well, that's a whole lot different. But and I say that about pretty much 75% of the roof. I think if you listen to us, we sound pretty much alike. There is a few guys, like you said, that really go up above and beyond and really coach a little bit more. But in the Cup Series, I don't know. Most of the veterans don't really want that, right? They want to be told what's going on around them, what somebody else is doing. But as far as, I don't think they probably need to be coached a whole lot. They just need to know what the trends are, where people are running. And so I try to make a mix of all that and keep it all together.
You know, chemistry like that, though, does it take a long time to develop? I mean, 2014, you know, you're with your new driver there, and within that by the end of that season, you guys win a championship. So, I mean, is it something that just kind of like after a while that clicks, or does it take a couple races or take a little while for you to put it together?
I mean, I think it takes a couple races. I mean, luckily we got the Clash. You go to the Clash, and then, you know, that's kind of a one-off, and it's a little bit different racing than what we're used to. And then we go to a couple speedway events, you know, Daytona, Atlanta. I would say by after Atlanta, you know, of all the talking I'm going to be doing between them two races and all the tight racing we're going to have, we'll have a pretty good idea of what we need to do. And, you know, you go to, I think, Vegas maybe after that. So I think, you know, by Vegas, 3 races in, you should have it down pretty good. We by this time we've talked, we've sat down, we've watched, you know, we've watched races together, and I think we'll have a good idea what we need or don't need to do and need to say. And I you know, I don't really put too much into it. I think it'll all be great.
Steve mentions that championship that you won when you moved over to Kevin Harvick's team in 2014. You guys went on to win about 37 or so races together in that time. He retires at the end of last season, and he had an interesting career where, you know, he's real brash and everything at the beginning. I think by the end he was a real fan favorite. But what was your time like, you know, with the 4-car, with Kevin, and just the success you guys were able to build together?
That was cool. I mean, we, you know, like coming off first year, we had such fast cars, and Kevin was just, you know, really, really fast every weekend. And, you know, to win a championship then and just get that out of the way, I guess, early. And then we went on to win races every year, just about, other than last year, which really kind of sucked for us. For Kevin, we wanted to get him a win bad. The team did in his last year. But, you know, just being part of that with Rodney and when Kevin was cool, and seeing Keelan grow up and Piper, you know, that's fun, right? Like, I think that's part of the allure to Kevin was, you know, just having his kids there and driving Keelan around at Michigan after he won, you know, stuff like that. It's cool. You remember it. And, but also just to be a part, like, Kevin's, you know, Hall of Famer, right? So just to be around someone like that. And, yeah, I always said, I wish I would have had Kevin around when I was driving. I would have been, I think, way better, just because he was such a smart dude, right? Like, not only behind the wheel, but in his business ventures and the way he sees things, his perspective. And, you know, I think, you know, it takes that nowadays. And obviously Ryan has figured out over the years, like, you know, he's like last year, he figured out how to conquer all of that, right? And bring it all together and manage it and win a championship. And that's what champions are all about, right? So I feel good. I felt I had a lot of fun, and to be able to come over and be with another champion, hopefully we can get a few more here, right?
Well, we were just talking before we started this call with you that you know, Ryan and Kevin have a couple first place, second place finishes that you guys are in the middle of there. That Pocono, Ryan's first win, and then of course last year Talladega. So now you join the other team, so you don't have to worry about trying to chase Ryan anymore.
Exactly, that's a good thing, right? Yep, for sure. No, Talladega was fun. We, you know, I thought we were neck and neck coming to the line, and it was. I wasn't really sure. I thought I'd seen the 12 go over the line first, but you know, that stuff's cool. And then to end up where I'm at now, and that's awesome. Me and Ryan have talked about it a few times, and Josh as well, right? Like we've relived that spotting moment at Talladega, and
Mhm.
it's cool. So it's something I'll never forget. It one of them finishes. It was pretty awesome.
You talked about it a little bit briefly earlier in this conversation, but how did the deal come together, moving to Penske and moving with Ryan? We've heard with other teams and other spotters and stuff before, they go out and have a beer, they go out and have lunch. Did you already have like a little bit of an existing relationship, or just how did that deal come together to kind of put you guys on one team?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've known Ryan. I've been, I guess we we have a mutual friend that we fly with sometimes to the races, and I got to know Ryan, Mr. Ken. I got to know Ryan through flying, and he knew the connection. He knows I'm a Michigan guy, an open wheel guy, and I think that had a little bit. We had something in common always when we talked, and we kind of clicked from the get go. So I think when I really didn't talk to Ryan about it, we met for lunch. I think there were some spotters available. They probably met with a few of them. Me, Jonathan, and Ryan went out to have lunch and let it rest for a while. They talked about it, and I thought it over, and then they called me back and would you be interested? And yeah, I'd be honored. So it really wasn't a huge courtship or anything. We just I think it all felt right for everybody.
Now, most of the time that I can remember with Kevin, like when he would get fiery on the radio, it usually was around with like maybe a pit stop going bad or something like that. This past season, maybe just because the championship spotlight and that whole playoff run was on Ryan, like there was so much focus on him and like about how, he could lose his cool in the car or, get a little bit upset and angry. One thing we always noticed though, is like he wasn't usually ever like pointing that anger at somebody on the team, but I always kind of felt like media and other fans kind of made it seem that way. But, I don't want to say, does that concern you, but are you kind of ready to work with that through this season? I don't know how Ryan and Kevin will differ in the way that they react to things, but it just seemed like that was like such a talking point last year, especially the second half of the season with this, fiery Ryan Blaney, especially championship race. You got a little upset with the one car and stuff. So this year, like how are you gonna manage that going forward?
I mean, I'll do what I do and try to, I've been doing it long enough, and I've been with Kevin, and I mean, that's just part of it, right? I used to drive. I was an asshole.
That's true.
Spotter at times, right? Like and be honest with you, Monday, I didn't even remember what I said to him. It was never directed at the team, nor do I think Ryan's is directed at anybody in particular. You're just mad, and you kind of, you say things that you don't even remember, right? Honestly, you don't remember them. But now we're all in such a tight little, the spotlight's on everything we do. Just like we got live feeds going out, we got just everything that, like you said, the media is so scrutinizing every little thing everybody says, especially when you're a championship contender. But I'm not. Everybody asked me that question, like, well, Ryan, man, he's fiery, I'm like, yeah, that's why he won a championship, and that's why we're, that's what you want to have, I think, and Kevin. I think I had Kevin. I always say post Keelan, and Billy O when they were at RCR had him pre Keelan. He was probably a little bit different. Sometimes in Kevin's case, he told me, Timmy, I just quit pushing the button as much. He said, I still yelled, but I didn't push the button as much. And as he aged in his career and whatnot, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, I just, it's not something that I'm really too concerned. Maybe I should be. I just feel like I've done it long enough. I've been in the driver's seat, and I know that, that's just passion coming out.
Yeah, I think Steve would agree with Ryan, especially if he's mad about the car. Like he could be real mad about the way the car's driving in the heat of it, but then, at a stage break, he'll just be like, yeah, if I think we'll just make a couple of these changes, it will be okay.
Yeah.
You guys carry, multiple radios. You got all these different channels. Bob Pockris put up a tweet earlier, a few weeks ago, like saying, oh, they've changed these rules so spotters can have all this stuff. And spotters were like, oh, we've had all that stuff for the last few years.
Yeah.
So you're managing all of that. You're managing this relationship with Ryan. How important is this relationship you have to build with Jonathan Hasser going to be? Because we know that you're going to be talking to him on a separate channel a lot, getting information back and forth that you have to feed to Ryan eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same deal, really. I mean, I have to, we've been trying in the off season just to get together when we can, and I go to the shop and just do whatever I can to try to bridge that gap. But again, the first 3 races of the season will kind of, there's nothing compares to just getting in there in the heat of the battle. But yeah, I mean, communication is huge, and I feel like, we all pretty much see eye to eye, and again, I think we've all raced long enough. We're all professionals, and it's not a concern of mine. I feel comfortable like going right away, right out of the gate, and having good line of communication, but I still, you do have to learn each other's idiosyncrasies and little quirks, and when to talk, when not to talk. And that does take a little time. I'm not going to lie. I mean, there's going to be some things that, I'm still going to say what I say, and Jonathan will say what they say, but maybe 5 races in, it'll be a little different, right? Like you're going to morph into this machine, and it does take some time.
The first points race you guys are going to be together for is going to be the biggest race of the season, obviously, in the Daytona 500. Ryan, historically, wildly successful on super speedways between his wins at Talladega, the win that he has at Daytona, multiple near wins in the Daytona 500. What are your thoughts on that style of racing and that style of spotting? And are you going to be able to, the way that Ryan runs and the way Team Penske operates at those races, they like to control the race, run out front. They don't usually bail to the back too often. I don't know if that differs from the strategy that Stewart Haas would have. I think you guys work together as teammates pretty well to get up through the pack, but are you prepared for that? And is that a style of spotting and racing that you like to do?
Yeah, I think everybody likes speedway racing. I mean, it's hard. Don't get me wrong; it's a lot, but I feel like it's it's nice when you don't have to. You just talk the whole time you're talking. It's fun. Yeah, and as far as the last few years at Stewart Haas, I think we all raced pretty hard. There wasn't much going to the back. All the Fords got together collectively in the last 6-7 years to try to make it better for the Fords as a whole. So I'm used to working, we always tried to work with the Penske cars until it was time not to work with them. And, the Fords, you tried to help when you could. Obviously, it sometimes works out, sometimes it don't. Sometimes there was hard feelings, but I do like speedway racing. And I think, obviously Ryan does too. He's really good at it. And I'm looking forward to getting to Daytona and winning a Daytona 500.
This might be a little inside baseball, but how many battery changes do you go through during a super speedway race?
Usually one battery change, and it usually gets you you forget to change it about 3/4 of the way through the race. And then you go, as soon as you start back green flag racing, your battery will start beeping. That knows, telling you your battery's going dead. But, I try to remember and switch it on a yellow, or like halfway, just past the second stage, but it never fails. It always goes right in the middle of something important happening, or right in the middle of a fuel stop when you're trying to get them down. That's just Murphy's Law.
Yeah, I've always heard stories about like guys had to make a couple different battery changes, and it's like it always seems to be when something's going on.
Yes, it never seems to happen under yellow or whatnot. It's always right when you're 3 wide in the middle and going after it. But that's just the way it goes.
So obviously you're jumping onto this team that just won a championship, and no team so far in this era, in this format, this elimination format, has won back-to-back. So I don't know that we're all expecting, back-to-back championships, but for you and joining a new team, what would a successful 2024 look like for you?
I mean, just I guess winning multiple. The championship is hard, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not like it used to be where you could just have a great year, be consistent, and win a couple races. Now I think you just have to be really fast if you can, if you can win 4 or 5 races in a season and just have a good playoff run. I mean, obviously you want to win the championship, but you have to kind of look at it a little differently. You just have to put yourself in a good position to where you can do that. And if you do that, I think you look back on it. Well, we didn't quite finish it off at Phoenix. It comes down to one race, right? And that's hard. It's really hard. It comes down to Martinsville, right? Like Ryan and Jonathan, the whole 12 team, they obviously won Martinsville to advance. There's so many things that got to go right. But I think you have to, when it's over and you look back, you kind of got to have realistic goals, and the championship really now is a bonus that, I mean, it's just a harder thing to accomplish. It's so hard to win a championship, and just because there's so many variables now. I think maybe other people look at it differently, but back from the old format to this format, back in the day, I'm not saying it was ever easy. It wasn't, but it's really hard, and it's I don't think you can be down on your team if you won 5 races and a couple playoff races and didn't win the championship. You had a great year, right? So, I mean, I want to have a great year, win some races, win big ones too. We talked about some. I mean, obviously Daytona, Indy, Darlington, big 3. The 600. Just be fast at the cool places. Martinsville is always fun to win at, right? Talladega. But then again, it's fun really to win everywhere. So, I mean, them are the races that stick in my head that I would love to win, but it don't really matter. If you win 4 or 5 races anywhere, you've had a good year.
Well, Timmy, really want to thank you for your time, and we know we're really looking forward to see what the future is going to be like for you and Ryan and this 12 team as they go out to try and defend their championship. And we're really looking forward to you winning your second Cup Series championship as a spotter.
That would be good for everybody.
Hopefully that comes sooner than later for sure. So, but thank you. Thanks for coming on to the Team Blaney podcast, and we definitely hope to talk to you again in the future.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure, guys. I appreciate you having me on, and we'll talk soon.
That was Tim Fedewa, the new spotter for Ryan Blaney, the number 12 Ford Mustang for Team Penske on the NASCAR Cup Series circuit. Steve, I thought this was the perfect time to bring Tim onto the show to kick off the season, but also before one of the most important races of the season. And we mentioned it to him in the interview. This is an important race for Blaney fans, for Ryan Blaney himself, because the way that he has run on super speedways his entire career, he's one of the best out there. He had one of the best spotters out there in Josh Williams. In steps Tim Fedewa, who's had success himself with Kevin Harvick in the past. So let's see what Tim can do in 2024. And why not? Let's start this off at Daytona.
I already listened to him in the Clash and loved what I heard. You know how good he is. You know that he's been doing it a long time, and a nice 10-year run with Kevin, and they won a championship together. So we're not talking about somebody that they're going to have to work together and learn how to work together. The shorthand is there, I think, already, and I can't wait to hear it. And I want to thank Jonathan Hassler for helping set that up for us, get that interview together for us. And Tim already kind of told me, I'm going to say this now. He told me that he'd come back on again, and I told him right after the first victory, he's my first guy I'm going to get a hold of. So I can't wait to hear from him again soon.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear from all the other folks that we're going to get on throughout the year. Thanks to Steve, who helped set up these interviews with Ryan Flores, Tim Fedewa, and looking forward to anybody else from the team that we bring on throughout the 2024 season. It's Daytona week, Steve, and can't wait to get this season started. Thank you, everyone, once again for tuning in to this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. You can interact with us on Facebook and X formerly known as Twitter, at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.Blaney. We also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So, for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Good night up there in the Netherlands. And check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.